Hi everyone. So we're going to kick off. Thank you all for joining Women at the Wheel this afternoon for our first webinar of the year. My name is Alex Siriani, and I'm a manager in AI and analytics at Deloitte. And I'm really pleased to be joined by two of our amazing members, Tam and Fatima, to chat today about analytics and automotive. We'll touch on some of the key trends in analytics right now, some exciting use cases that are driving real value for the industry, as well as how you can get started, whether you're a data analyst, an engineer, or a business leader. We will have time for Q&A at the end, but please feel free to send in your questions as they come to you. So before we begin, let's meet our speakers. Tam, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you've gotten involved with Women at the Wheel?
Yeah, sure thing. So first of all, thanks for coming to Manchester. I hope that you love it. My name's Tamana. Everybody calls me Tam though, and I work for Jaguar Land Rover as a senior data scientist, where I've shaped their new data science team, which focuses on bringing value from vehicle analytics. I have previous experience from working for a financial services retailer, which was in Brown, which was a fab company to work for. I became experienced in machine learning and prescriptive analytics when supporting FS product and marketing strategy towards improved commercial growth, which was the most exciting in the face of regulatory forces. My role here taps into innovation, but even with the more niche application of analytics, I'm always expanding on previous commercial experience. The goal of driving operational efficiencies, value, and an improved customer experience is common across sectors. I joined this group to network with talented women in automotive and keep up to date with movements in the industry. It's an industry which I've followed for years and years, so it's exciting to be able to share as a data science lead in this space.
Amazing, thanks. Fatima, how about yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be part of the panel today. And I have to thank Janae, who's here in our Whitley offices, for the support, and Alex, of course. She's in Manchester, in the Jella office. As Alex mentioned, my name is Fatima El-Wakeel. I work for Jaguar Land Rover as a data analytics and reporting manager in our global financial services. I've been part of Jella for nearly 5 years now, where I've worked across different data analytics projects in different areas of the business. Prior to JLR, I've worked in strategy development, financial management, and data analytics across different industries like consulting, hospitality, and IT. I also had the privilege of leading change management, organization restructures, and innovation projects in both multinationals and public sectors across the EMEA region, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Been part of Women at the Wheel for a few years now. It is a great community of both men and women who are passionate about automotive, continuous development, and of course, sharing knowledge, which is brilliant. I met some inspiring professionals during the Women at the Wheel event, and I've personally learned a lot.
Thank you. As for myself, just a very quick introduction. I've always worked in analytics, first as a data analyst specializing in behavioral modeling, working across different industries, and now I work with clients in automotive to help them build their analytics capabilities, and that's from developing their analytics strategy through to implementation. I've been involved with Women at the Wheel now for a couple of years, and I initially got involved because I was new to the industry, so it was a really great way for me to build my knowledge and my network, but also because I'm hugely passionate about diversity, like most of our members are. So I'm really pleased that I can do what I can to support the career journeys of women, especially because I've benefited from some amazing support throughout mine. So that's the panel today. I think before we get started and into our discussion, it's probably helpful to first talk a little bit about what we mean by analytics, because it is quite a broad term. So I'll take you through a couple slides here. First of all, so there's kind of four types of analytics, ranging from descriptive through to prescriptive. The data that informs these solutions tends to be the same, but the amount of manual effort and the time to decisions shortens with more advanced analytics, as you can see here. So by the time you get to prescriptive analytics, you're kind of automating a lot of the decisions that you would make more manually with descriptive and diagnostic analytics. And just to bring that to life a little bit for you, so descriptive analytics is really helping you to understand what's happened. So it's commonly known as things like BI, business intelligence, or MI, management information. And it gives you a sense of how you've performed across regions, products, campaigns, customers, risk metrics, whatever your KPIs are. So the example you see here is actually a senior management dashboard for financial services. So you can see some key performance metrics on the left, and then how they've kind of performed over time. So it's a fairly static dashboard. Now, Diagnostic is taking that same data and really allowing you to explore it in a more dynamic way. So you have a set of filters at the top there, so you can slice and dice the data more easily. You can explore your metrics by region, by area, by vehicle type, for example. And then you can also compare metrics. So it's starting to allow you to kind of see trends and relationships in the data. But again, it's very manual. Predictive analytics is really when you start as it should suggest, to predict an outcome based on historic data. So, for example, how likely is a customer to miss a payment in their finance agreement based on their payment history? Or as in this example, what is the likely quality concern based on historic concerns from dealers? So what you're seeing here is actually the user interface for a quality solution. And it's using AI to classify quality concerns that are incoming from dealers. So in this example, engineers typically would kind of manually interpret hundreds and hundreds of thousands of concerns that are coming in. And all of these are kind of written out in text. And they're trying to find relationships in the data to kind of identify that this group of concerns are the same. With an AI engineer, it does that work for you. So all of a sudden, what would normally take hours and hours actually takes seconds, and it can be quite accurate as well. So it's still manual in a sense that an engineer, a human engineer, needs to go in and kind of validate the predicted categories, retrain the model, continuously give it more information. But a lot of that legwork is done by the AI model. So that's a good example of predictive. Prescriptive is when you kind of start to get into things like machine learning and automating decision making. So, for example, what you're seeing here is VME, how different dealers are using their VME. And typically OEMs spend millions on incentive every year, and they struggle to not only report accurately on how it's being allocated, so that's more of that descriptive and diagnostic element, but they also struggle to kind of optimally distribute it. So how can you maximize margin on your VME? And this is a really good way of doing that. So in summary, there's kind of a range of analytics, and as you can probably tell, they require a range of skill sets. So actually, I'll turn to Fatima now. Given your experience in building analytics capabilities, can you tell us a little bit about what some of those typical skill sets are?
Well, you've explained the types of analytics in a brilliant way, Alex. And yes, those types need different skills and different capabilities. Well, from my perspective, I really believe that there are two main types of skills that are needed for a person who works in data analytics. You have the technical or the business skills, and you have the soft skills, which are both really equally important. If we start with the technical skills, analytics projects that fall within those types that you've explained generally go through one or more of those activities that you can see on the slides. So they can involve activities like data engineering or data science, automation, maybe a little bit of visualization to deliver the message at the end. Those activities require technical and business roles. So you have data engineers, you have data scientists, data visualization specialists, and more. Also, well, data analytics projects are managed in an agile methodology normally. This means that you have new set of business roles that are present at the moment, like product owners or scrum masters. So those are all types of technical skill set that are needed. I have to highlight that there are also some skill set that fall between, like they're kind of on the boundary really between the soft skills and the technical skills. So picking the right technology, for example, to use is an important skill set. There are so many tools in the market, as you can see on the slide. It is important to know which tool to use and in what type of organization, because that also kind of affects the decision.
Great. And what about the soft skills that you mentioned, Fatima?
Well, if you go to the next slide, if you imagine a team being built and they're sat around the table discussing a data analytics project, it would be good to have the team members have some complementing skills. So, for example, being a good business partner who works closely with the business and understand their needs is essential. You have to explain analytics to non-analytics people in a non-technical way in many of the cases, really. So this is quite an important skill set. Another skill set is being able to handle ambiguity. There are a lot of changes that go on when you're working on a project. Ambiguity isn't the easiest skill set, and as a human being, we're not really comfortable with it. But it is quite important when you're working on a data analytics project. Also, if you're working on an analytics at this point or would like to join on the journey, you probably would realize that it is kind of a change management area. You're kind of a change agent, really, in most of the time. So I think those are some of the very important soft skills that are needed. There are also some skill sets that combine both the technical and soft skills, like problem structuring, a data analytics project with the business team members. This is kind of important to understand and work on. Another skill set that sits between technical and soft skill is, which I believe is very important, is being an algorithmic thinker. So really understanding the importance of algorithms, how to utilize it, when to utilize it, and what type of business cases it's used in.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I think there's an increasing challenge, isn't it, to kind of identify those people with a mixture of technical skills and soft skills. So we found in a study that 60% of companies struggle to find that right balance. So those so-called kind of technology athletes who have the technical expertise, especially in new and emerging tech, but also the ability to be able to brainstorm innovative business ideas, develop engaging user experiences, and most importantly, collaborate with the business to develop these solutions. It's so important that analytics projects are business driven and have that engagement from the get-go. So now that we have a handle on what analytics is and the different roles, thank you, Fatima. Let's talk a little bit about why it's a strategic priority for so many companies right now. And I say that with confidence because 60% of CIOs globally are looking to data and analytics to deliver future business impact. So Tam, you've been busy creating a data science capability at JLR, presumably for that very reason, to create business impact. Why do you think analytics is top of the agenda right now?
I think in a one-word answer, it's data. Companies are becoming more and more data rich, with data coming from various internal and third-party sources. So here, that's huge volumes of data from the car, which might relate to the driver, such as their infotainment usage, or it might relate to the state of the car, such as temperature or diagnostics, or it might even be situational, such as road conditions. And we also have data from dealers, such as warranty and claim data. And companies are now interested in the cloud and cloud data platforms, which can support increasingly large amounts of data and provide better power and scalability. So they're investing resource in IT as well as data analytics. But why are they becoming data rich? Well, data analytics and data science reveals insight, solutions, and innovations for and about our customers, really helping us to optimize and personalize their experiences, enhance operational efficiency, save costs, and increase commercial growth and value. Personalization is absolutely key, and with science, we understand every individual and situation. So you could say that these days data really is like currency. And as well as becoming data rich, companies are becoming culturally data driven and empowered to be more customer centric and obsessed, with data driven insights and predictions also forming the basis of business and strategic decisions. Those slow to realize or approach this may be left behind.
I really love that phrase, the data is like currency. Fatima, what do you think?
Well, I think for several years, data was referred to as the new oil, Alex, because of its value, as Tam highlighted. Now data is created in massive amounts through all the activities we do. And it is easily accessible, to be honest. This kind of enabled data analytics utilization a lot. Previously, industries and companies didn't have access to all this data. We could barely get data in a country, then consolidate across regions. There were times, and that was in the late 2000s, when silos between departments was a result of not being able to link systems. So now data analytics maturity made it easier to have access to data in a more centralized form, using the cloud and link departmental data together, or even if it's from different systems, it's not really a problem anymore. There are many examples of data analytics projects that are done cross-functionally, like, for example, forecast models that include factors such as volume seasonality, geography, and demographic patterns. Another example would be pricing optimization and linking that to demand, elasticity, market preferences, and discounts based on volumes. So having this kind of linkage between departments, if you go to the next slide, really supports a lot. For example, if you work on optimization for supply chain, especially when companies have different facilities around the world, taking into account logistic costs, customer demand, well, through analytics team, you can identify factor capacities by country, plan how to take advantage of underutilized capacity, for example. So that you can move different products in different countries depending on the risks. Alex?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute.
It's okay.
Thank you. I would have just kept going.
It's fine.
So I was saying that those are all great points. And I'd also add that, as everyone knows, the industry is changing rapidly and massively. So consumer behaviors are shifting, technology is advancing. There's new market entrants that are disrupting the competitor landscape. So there's really so much opportunity in the pressured market to gain a competitive advantage, which analytics enables, whether that's through improving revenue growth, your operating margin, or your asset efficiency. So those kind of typical value levers. And many of those opportunities, as you can see on the slide here, and these are kind of across the value chain, so hopefully you can spot one or two that are kind of relevant to you. But many of these opportunities require elements of all types of analytics. So if we go back to the kind of descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. But I'd also add that not just because a use case isn't a cutting edge optimization with an AI, recurrent neural network, sitting underneath it, which is quite a mouthful, it doesn't mean that it can't add huge value to the business. I've seen many of my clients realize huge value just by democratizing their data So as we've already touched on, centralizing it, making it accessible, providing the right tools to explore it. So tools like Tableau, for example, are making it easier and easier for business users to independently and proactively answer their business questions. Fatima, what do you think?
I think you're so correct, Alex. Tools and technology made it much easier for businesses to access data and for users to proactively answer their own business questions. So visualization tools now enable stakeholders to slice and dice the data, to uncover hidden patterns, do correlations, and understand other insights. Like with today's technology, for example, it's possible to analyze our data and get answers from it almost immediately compared to lower and less efficient traditional business intelligence solutions that were there previously. So if you go through the slide with the map.
There you go.
Yes. So within financial services, for example, we have 42 partnerships across the world. It is important for us to simplify the data and enable our partners and stakeholders to self-serve easily. They're not located in the UK, they're all over the globe, as you can see. They understand their regions and area better than anyone. We believe that they are expert in their profession, so we make sure to enable their success through providing the right visualization and the right data. Example of data that is useful for them is penetration rates, for example, customer retention, performance KPIs. Data shapes a lot of the decisions that they take, and it's important to provide it to them at the right time. What do you think, Tam?
Yeah, I think in some organizations, they actually refer to data science as decision science to really highlight that point. And I think the biggest value from analytics in our industry relates to vehicle analytics. It's awesome how data is being used today to shape cars of the future, or even cars on the road now, thanks to advanced software over-the-air tech. This allows cars to update just as we're used to seeing our phones update. A lot of efforts within the industry are focused on improving and personalizing the customer journey in both the literal and marketing sense, and making the car more connected with each driver, even if they share a single car. An intelligent drive is now a growing expectation, where customers previously considered design and performance alone. They're now also interested in technology and cars which can adapt for situations and their needs and preferences in real time. So they want their cars to be cleverer than themselves. And I know that that's what I would look for. So some examples are predicting diagnostics and fixing it remotely before a customer even gets to see the warning light. So this gives a better customer experience and saved costs from reduced dealer visits. Or we could even recommend which infotainment feature we predict they'll choose next. And in doing so, we simplify and enhance their infotainment experience. Or we can advise them to take a break if their face looks tired. This is an example of emotion AI, and I would almost say it's the final frontier of analytics. It's quite advanced, where cars can respond to driver sentiment. Here, the driver feels like their car is taking good care of them, creating positive emotional engagement, which works also as a powerful marketing strategy. At Jaguar Land Rover, we are applying data science to terabytes of real-time data to drive towards autonomous driving, connectivity, electrification, and shared mobility. But there are the ethics of AI and GDPR for us all to consider in the face of these trends and exciting use cases.
So that's a really good point. You mentioned GDPR and you've mentioned the use of biometric data, for example. So we found in the same study that I've mentioned before that half of consumers are concerned about sharing data like biometric and app data, less around kind of location and navigation data. But how does the industry overcome that?
I think there's a balance between providing the benefits of connected cars whilst addressing consumer concerns. Transparency is a key factor when customers decide to share their data or not. They need clarity about what data is being collected from them, what happens to it, and they need to really trust in the ability to opt out and be forgotten.
Right. So lots of exciting things happening right now in analytics in automotive, as you can hopefully tell. I guess the next obvious question is, where do you get started, whether you're an individual or a company? What are some of the challenges that we face?
Um, From my personal experience, the biggest challenge I faced doesn't actually relate to my technical ability, which might be surprising because on the surface you'd think it could do. It was actually more about the commercial area I joined at the time a few years ago. So I transitioned to a financial services domain without any previous work or personal experience with credit. And without this domain understanding, it was a genuine struggle to understand how or where I could spot opportunities or add value, which was essentially part of my role. So I really didn't understand our customers then and was dependent on others at work. I knew it would have taken ages for this understanding to come to me organically. So I accelerated on this deficiency, and deficient is really the word here, by building and maintaining relationships with others in neighbouring teams, cross-functional teams, and also outside of the business. So I think the key theme there is people. People are really key. And at one stage I had 4 mentors, which seems quite excessive, but that was 4 sets of experiences to learn from and share mine with. And I still keep in touch with them and value them hugely. And I also mentor myself now. But with a fuller commercial lens, you can better think of how and where value can be added with data and provide support and even a bit of challenge in decision-making scenarios. Um, Maybe even grow to be a bit of a nuisance. Where appropriate, it's much appreciated. With the relationships you build, you have more influence in bringing your data science solution or product to life. And I really think that great soft skills and commercial awareness are just as essential as having great technical skills for a data scientist or analyst to be well-rounded and value-adding. Fatima, what do you think?
Well, I think I came to data analytics from the other side, Tam, really, which I think it shows for our listeners that there are two ways to come to it, really. We still met at the end.
Yeah.
So we're both working in data analytics. But I faced more the technical challenge, to be honest. So my journey with data analytics started in my MBA. I was doing a consulting internship, and my client asked how to utilize big data. At that time, I have to admit, had no idea, had no clue whatsoever. Like, what are you speaking about? So I went back, researched data analytics, and literally didn't sleep that night. I still remember it. I started reading about data analytics and got completely hooked on it. I changed my MBA focus even, so I dropped subject and decided to do a dissertation instead, which was quite a decision for me at that time. I built a framework for strategic big data implementations in companies. So I decided to move from Manchester to London, contacted multinationals to understand their journey, interviewed executives and directors to understand their career too, because I didn't know what the future would hold for me.
That's a very decisive action. How did that kind of approach help you?
It was a big decision. It helped me understand that analytics as a word is often confused with data science, machine learning, AI, data engineering, blockchain, like you name it. It's like really confusing. Some of those areas are part of data analytics in functions within some companies, while you can find them as their own function in other companies, which added a lot to the confusion. Especially when people are thinking of having an analytics career. So yeah, there are many fancy terms out there. So my suggestion as a first step would be to actually go and speak to people working in those areas and understand what they do. They'll give you the understanding of what your options are for a career. Ask them questions like what the day is like, how did they have their career path? Why do they have the passion for this area, whether it's data engineering or blockchain or whatsoever? How do they continuously learn and the resources that they use? there are so many areas as I've explained, and my suggestion would be just to find the area that you are really passionate about, and it would not be an issue to commit. If you have passion for it, you will easily commit the time and the effort, because the field requires continuous development, reading, and being always up to date. Passion definitely helps.
Just to highlight one of your points, I think continuous development is a vital one. There's constantly developments and advances within analytics, be that in tools or platforms or algorithms. We really need to keep learning and following these advances to make sure we're able to provide the most optimal and modern solutions for both internal and external customers. Luckily for me, I really enjoy keeping up to date with new and emerging tech, which is a relief.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you. I probably faced similar challenges at different points in my career. But I think I'll approach the question more from rather than a personal point of view, because I think you've covered what I would say. But I'll come at it from an organizational point of view. I think a lot of the clients that I've worked with think that they're really behind the curve when it comes to analytics and their capability. But in reality, the majority of organizations are really only starting their journey to becoming insight driven. And I think it's always tempting when you are starting that journey to invest a lot of time and money in building high-end technology, building the relevant infrastructure, transforming big data. But for analytics to be successful at an organizational level, it's critical to prove its value, and even more critical to identify its champions within your organization, particularly within the C-suite. So what I would typically recommend is starting with a proof of concept. So starting small, choose a strong use case that you believe will deliver business value and is importantly relatively low complexity to deliver. So by that I mean you have the data that you need. You're not going to be spending ages collecting it, transforming it into the shape that you need. And you also have a clearly articulated business problem that it will address. So with those in mind, you're able to demonstrate value in a really short amount of time and find those champions within your organization.
Yeah, I really agree that value is a super major point. This was a personal learning curve for me. It was hammered into me previously, but proving value from analytics is key, even if just to justify investment in data recruitment and platforms. So there's two parallel value streams for a business that I think. One is from an internal perspective, where you aim to improve operational costs and efficiencies, often through targeting methods. And the second is outward facing and is new product or feature developments to satisfy the customer's expectations, even if unbeknownst to them at the time. Both support competitive position and commercial value gain.
Great. So that's all from us. In terms of kind of the planned discussion. So I think we should open the floor to questions. And hopefully we've had some over the chat. I can't see them right now, but my colleague will let me know. But we have also received some over email before the webinar. So maybe we start with one of those just to kind of warm everyone up. So this question is from one of our members at a global OEM who is thinking about their connected car strategy. And their question is, how do companies actually make money from the analytics that underpin something like infotainment? So maybe Tam, that's probably one best suited for you.
It's a good question, and in one word, it's data. So combining infotainment data with vehicle and customer data, whether that's location or average length of journey or number of passengers, it enables us to turn the literal customer journey into a fulfilling customer experience. And that's what we're obsessed with providing. So some examples of what we can do is smart messaging, such as traffic reports tailored to customer travel patterns and current location. So if there was heavy traffic, your connected car might flag this and suggest a diversion in real time. Or it could be something relating to the smart wallet, such as Earn As You Drive, where drivers can earn crypto on the go if they agree to share info about traffic or potholes. And in return, they can use credits to pay for parking and EV charging. Or it could even be recommended entertainment, which I think I touched on before, but a different spin could be based on who you're with or where you are or the type of journey that you're assumed to be making. Is it a school run or a long motorway drive? These features can really save the customer their time and money and offer better safety and convenience, which many customers now expect when buying a car. For most of them, it's actually their second biggest purchase after a house. So obsessing about the customer in this way and monetizing infotainment really helps companies to remain competitive.
And I'd also say that probably more generally, just to kind of summarize that, I think there's typically two ways in which data is monetized, either directly or indirectly. So directly through consumers. So for example, by offering an in-vehicle service like Tam has just described, where they're willing to pay for that service, whether that's upfront or on a subscription basis, as we'll probably increasingly see more. Or indirectly, so through the insight that you derive from the data that you're collecting to improve some of your internal processes. So that could be, for example, reducing your warranty spend through something like Quality AI, which I touched on earlier. It could be recommending products that are more likely to be taken up and therefore driving revenue growth. Or it could be, personalizing campaigns based on the data that you have about a customer. And again, increasing their likelihood to kind of take up an offer.
Alex, we've had one on the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, so thanks very much to Kelly. It says, I'm keen to use more analytics, but my team are still uncomfortable with analytics and data more generally. What would you recommend? How can we encourage more of our organizations to use analytics?
Good question. I can start with an answer, and then Fatima and Tam, feel free to jump in. I think that's kind of often, we hear that a lot. I think business users tend to think of analytics as, a complex thing. But I would start by kind of exploring what tools your organization has already embedded. So there are things, I've mentioned Tableau. It's a really excellent tool. It's really user-friendly. There's so much online support available on the Tableau website and communities online that it makes it really easy for users who might not typically think of themselves as analytical. And it just kind of gives them the ability to explore their data, become more familiar with their data in a really intuitive way. So I would probably suggest starting there with what tools you already have in the organization.
Yeah, I think I would back that up. So look at the tools that you have, explore open source tools, but also be aware of the data you already have in-house, and then potentially start looking at disruptive analytics. That seems like a really good place to start, and gain visibility on KPIs.
Just to maybe, because I come again from a non-technical background, just to highlight the open source tools are the tools that are free, like Python or R. Like, feel free to Sam. So those are the tools that are out there in the market, and you can easily download them and use them. What I would suggest if you want people to join you on the journey for analytics, and that's based just on speaking with different people in different organizations, is to find like the quick wins, things that your team is they have challenges, whether it's reporting, whether it's modeling, and you think that you can kind of fix it quickly and turn it around. Because once they see the outcome, they would want to understand more. They'd want to do analytics and to support. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, totally. Getting people excited about it. Yeah.
So guys, I don't come from an analytics background, but you've kind of tickled my fancy. So if I'm looking for resources on how I can learn more about analytics, what are some simple ones to start with? Like, where do I start? Is it videos? Is it YouTube? Is it reading? Is it blogs? What are your suggestions?
I actually find Twitter is a good resource. There's a lot of really good accounts there which I follow just to learn more, and that was a good way to get started because it's in a easy to understand approach, but also they ensure it's very relatable and it's almost bite-sized because each tweet has a limit, but enough to pique your interest if you want to explore. So I think social media is a good way.
I don't have social media.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of free online courses where you could start. Like Coursera is a good one.
Yeah.
It's quite easy to learn Python now these days online through really interactive tutorials, where you actually code a little bit and it shows you what you've done wrong or gives you tips. So there's lots of that around. Quick Google would probably do it.
Yeah.
I like that every one of us has like their own approach of learning analytics, so it shows that you can come to it from many different ways. My suggestion would be like, yeah, there are tools out there. So even like for Tableau, for example, they have their free online courses. So you can just look at the website and look at their blogs. They have the Makeover Mondays, for example, which is something that you can join if you start learning, and because you see different visualization and they judge it and then they kind of give their opinion on how to improve it. That kind of chums you, I didn't actually think of doing it that way. There's so many blogs out there, and a lot of blogs, like my challenge was to actually understand the technical blogs. But I think now there are blogs that speak the plain English language. So you can easily Google things and just look at blogs in business cases.
Great. Thank you very much.
Cool. So unless we have any questions from the chat, we might just end there and give 15 minutes back to your day. Thank you, Tam and Fatima, for joining. Really big thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed it. If you do have any other questions, I'm speaking to the audience now, or if you're interested in co-hosting a webinar with Women at the Wheel, please feel free to get in touch. And if you're joining us next week in Stratford upon Avon to celebrate International Women's Day, which is on the 5th, we look forward to seeing you there.